Hello, today is Friday, August 23rd, 2013. We are in Bellingham, Massachusetts, and this tape is part of the Bellingham Mendon Veterans Oral History Project. My name is Marjorie Hollman. Our cameraman is Eric Fisher of ABMI Cable 8 TV. We are privileged to have with us today Bill Vicini of Bellingham. Welcome, Bill. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Marjorie. Good morning.
Good morning. I have some questions for you. Could you first tell us when and where you were born?
I was born in Natick, Mass. in 1944 in October, and from there we lived in Framingham for most of my childhood. And then we moved from there to Ashland, where I attended school and graduated from high school in 1963.
Okay. And what did your parents do for work?
My dad worked in the shoe manufacturing program in Boston, Mass. And my mom did house cleaning, housework in Natick for quite a few years.
Okay. And do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have two sisters. One lives in Franklin, and, well, matter of fact, both of them live in Franklin. And so they're fairly close by.
Younger, older?
They're younger.
Okay.
My older sister is 2 years younger than I am, and my younger sister is 12 years younger than I am.
Okay. All right. And what could you tell me about any other family members who were in the service?
My dad was served during World War II. He was at the Battle of the Bulge, and my uncle, his older brother, served in the Army also, and his younger brother served in the Navy during World War II. And I have 3 cousins who served during the Korean conflict, and one was in the Marines, and the other one was in the Navy, and the other one was in the Army. His son was in the Army.
So you have a long tradition of military service?
I would say so. I would say so. When they came to this country, they came from, my grandparents came from Italy, and they come over here in about 1917, 1918.
Okay. Oh, okay. So your grandparents were immigrants?
Yes, yes, they were.
All 4?
Pardon?
All 4 grandparents?
Well, yes. My mother's father and mother came from Canada, and they became naturalized citizens.
All right. Okay. And could you tell us what you were doing before you entered the service?
I worked as an auto mechanic at a local dealership in Framingham. I worked on Volkswagens for probably about 3 years before I entered the service.
But you were married at the time?
Well, no, we got married. I went into the service in September of 1964, and because of the large buildup they were having in Vietnam, it was a choice of either be drafted into the Army or try and maybe get some further educations, and I joined the Air Force. We got married in 1965, March of 1965.
And your wife is?
My wife is Sheila, and again, we have 2 daughters, surrounded by girls.
All right. Well, now tell me why you chose the branch of service that you did.
Well, at the time, I had gone to different branches. I knew that my draft number was coming up very shortly, and so I did feel as though I would like to maybe get into a field where I could further an education, and so I picked aircraft maintenance. And of course, the recruiter says, "Well, gee, you never get what the first thing you put in for." So he said, "What would you prefer to do?" And I said, "Well, I would like to learn jet engine repair and service." "Oh," he said, "don't put that down first." He says, "What would you like to do second?" And I said, "Well, reciprocating aircraft."
Say that again?
Reciprocating aircraft, which are prop helicopter, prop aircraft. And sure, Bill, did get his first choice. So he went to aircraft maintenance school at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas. for 5 months.
So you moved from from cars to aircraft?
To aircraft, yes, yes.
All right. And now you were married by the time you were in the service, is that correct?
No, it was right after I had joined the service. It was
Okay.
in March of 1965.
But you didn't get shipped to Vietnam right away?
Not at that point, no.
Okay. All right. Well, tell me what happened that you did end up over in Vietnam.
When I got out of school for aircraft maintenance, I was stationed at Otis Air Force Base down on the Cape, and worked at the 551st Field Maintenance Squadron, which did radar surveillance from Canada down to Florida. And I was there for almost 2 years. And I first got orders to go to Vietnam, probably, I think it was in around March of that year in '66. My wife was pregnant with our second daughter at the time, so I got a deferment for 3 months. And after the 90 days after I got my deferment, Bill got his orders to go to Vietnam.
With a 3-month-old baby?
With a 3-month-old baby and a year and 4-month-old baby.
Wow.
So, but that's how I ended up going over there. Of course, at that particular time, they were increasing the forces over there. They were talking about having 500,000 troops there within a matter of a couple of years.
Wow.
So the first base I went to was, we landed at Saigon, and the first base I was at, of course, was Ton Sanut, which is air base at Saigon. And from there, I was only there processed for a couple days, and I went to Nha Trang Air Force Base, and that was just off the South China Sea.
I think we have a picture of the there with the mountain, the beautiful mountains in the background and the ocean, and that was what you saw when you woke up in the morning.
In the mornings, yes. We did have the town, or the city itself, was considered to be one of the premier resort areas in the country, and it was very nice. And we did have the mountains on one side of us and the South China Sea on the other, and we did have a real nice beach out there. Of course, we didn't enjoy it too much, but it was there.
No.
And yes, that was a UH-1F helicopter coming in. At our base, we had helicopter aircraft and AC-47s, which they call Puff the Magic Dragon, who live by the sea.
Oh, I see.
And
I see.
at that particular time, we only did, between the Army and the Air Force personnel, there was less than 5,000 people at that base, and a very small runway. During the course of the year that I was there, they expanded the runway to over 10,000 feet so we could land jet aircraft there. We couldn't land jet aircraft. The runway was too small. The base was really too small. By the time I left there were over 15,000 troops there. And we had a 10,000-foot runway, and we could land any aircraft there.
Okay. Well, tell me about the living conditions there, because you were in a tropical climate.
It was very different. It was very warm, but also, of course, being near the ocean, it was very humid. And some days it was 120 degrees. The humidity would be up around 80%. So, and then, of course, I was there during shortly after I got there, 2 months after I got there, we had the monsoon season. And every day you would get rain for 10 minutes, then it would go from a half an hour, then to an hour, and then it would rain constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we had little, what you might say, puddles of water coming through that were close to being knee-deep in the hooches that we lived in. The barracks that we lived, they call them hooches. There were 40 personnel that lived in those hooches. we didn't have, you know, big barracks or anything like that when we first got there. It was just all small little units. And most of the time, it was just like if we worked different shifts in each hooch, they try to get everybody that worked on the same shift. So, you know, it wouldn't be disturbing one another all day long or all night long getting up and go to work. We worked many different hours. When I first got there, we used to work a regular 8-hour shift. And then we would work 12-hour shifts, and then we would work 7 days a week, depending upon the requirements that they had.
Now, were these tents? Were they apartments?
Well, no, the bottoms were like a corrugated material, and the tops, the roofs were the corrugated material, but then they had screening all the way around, probably about 4 to 5 feet high, so you could get ventilation. It was cement floor, that was it. And you just had a locker, you had a space probably no bigger than probably 8 by 8, that was about the size of it. And your bed was there and your locker was there. And
how did you stay dry in the monsoon season?
well, most of the time we didn't wear uniforms. A lot of times we went to work with PT shorts and shower clogs on and just a t-shirt. Everything got very, very moldy. They did send us over there with winter uniforms, which we really didn't need. But no, it was not the best of living conditions.
Okay. And tell me, there were illnesses. You were talking about some kinds of illnesses you had because of the tropical climate.
Oh, yes. You had to be careful of that you didn't get dehydrated. Number one, they used to have to take salt tablets if you went up to eat your breakfast, lunch, or dinner. They had salt tablets right there, and it was mandatory that you took them. Most of the water that was there was processed through the military, and they had a lot of little floaty things in there. You never asked why or what, but you drank it.
So did people dealt with dysentery? And
yes,
other tropical?
yes. I had a slight problem. I couldn't shave there for about 6 weeks. We didn't have any hot water. It was, you know, just cold water. And the woman who took care of our barracks, they were called Mama Sans. She had gone down and bought me a pan to heat water on. And I had a hot plate. I had gotten a hot plate. And that's how I used to shave every day. And different things like that.
So skin
irritation,
diseases
skin irritations.
okay.
Oh yeah, they were prevalent over there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of jaundice going around because of the food. Some of the troops that we had at the base, we didn't have enough quarters for them to stay. So the government rented these villas downtown, and a lot of the guys used to eat down there, and it was not good. Okay. When you go down to the marketplace and you see dead chickens hanging up there with flies and maggots all over them, it's
what about
not a good
malaria?
thing. Malaria was another big thing. Yes, yeah. My brother-in-law, who was served in the army there, he got discharged and came home because he had malaria. And he still suffers from that today.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Goodness. You talked a little bit about the black market. Would you like to say anything about that? You don't have to. We're certainly not going to name names. Would you like to?
No, well,
relate
it was a little bit
that?
strange when I first signed into the squadron there. We had a major as our commanding officer, and first sergeant, and they said, we're going to give you something that you must guard with your life. And I figured, oh, Jesus, they're going to give us, you know, an M16 or something like that. And he come walking out and handed me 3 rolls of toilet paper. It was not available over there. I mean, it just wasn't. Toothpaste at the base exchange was not available. So when we wrote home, that was one of our major priorities. Please send toilet paper. And then again, at one point in time, when we had gone into the city, we see these brand new refrigerators all lined up on these little vendors. And here we were back there, and we didn't have any type of refrigeration, so we couldn't keep our beer cold, and that was bad. So one of the troops that were doing guard duty there one night saw these refrigerators going out by the truckload, and he wrote to his congressman and wanted to know why. Mm-hmm. And within 2 weeks, we did have refrigerators in all the hooches. Mm-hmm. It's a sad thing to say, but if there's money to be made someplace, there are going to be those individuals who will do those type of things. Mm-hmm. That didn't serve us very well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, tell me about your duties in Vietnam.
Well, when I first went there, as I said, I was assigned to the 14th Air Commando Field Maintenance Squadron, and I worked in what they would call ordinarily, if I was back in the States, it would be the aero repair shop. We did flight controls, landing gears, all types of different maintenances. We had the specialists who did the electrical parts and fuel people who took care of the fuel. And I found out I was assigned to the crash recovery and rescue crew that was there. And
there's your crew right there with some of the...
That's part of our crew. We usually had anywhere between 6 and 7 members.
And that's you on the left.
That is me on the left. Those are 2 tow tugs that we had.
Is that the equipment you would take out?
Yes,
with
we
you?
had crash trailers that we had all types of equipment. We had high pressure air compressors. We had big lifting bags and all kinds of other equipment that you would use on the recovery. And we did have one evening, which I was on duty, we had a little problem one time with an aircraft that came in and forgot to put his landing gear down and landed on the runway. And we had a little problem trying to get him up. It was one of these special aircraft that nobody knew what they did or why they were flying, but this lieutenant was flying and practicing taking off and landings, and the one landing that he made, it was not good. The gear was still up in the aircraft. And we had a little problem getting them up because we couldn't get into the aircraft because of the security problems, security reasons. And about a month after that, all of a sudden here comes this big 50-ton crane that was shipped from Turkey to our base. So we could lift the aircraft up, and you had 10 minutes to get an aircraft off the runway. It was critical.
Because
the fighter jets had priority. And if
meaning
they
you
came
had
in,
other
we had
jets
other aircraft coming
behind.
in, and you could not tie up the runway for more than 10 minutes. We had a D9 bulldozer that, if need be, you clear the runway one way or another. They wanted it cleared. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the equipment. We did have some big equipment there, very expensive equipment. Mm-hmm. But basically, that's what we did. Sometimes we were at the base, just handling aircraft at the base, and sometimes if we had a crash off-site, we had to go off-site and do a recovery.
That must have been much more dangerous.
Yes, it was, and probably a lot less pleasant. Situations probably, and any one of those situations, it was not a rescue, it was a recovery. And
you weren't typically able to rescue people?
No, okay. No. When an aircraft crash like that, it's usually everyone is. It's a fatalities. Yes, not a pleasant thing.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, when you recovered those, what was the purpose of bringing those back besides recovering bodies? Did you have to do anything with the equipment that you recovered?
It all depends how bad the aircraft was. I had gone down to Benoit Air Base, which was probably about 35 miles northwest of Saigon, and we had one of our smaller aircraft crash there. And we ended up taking the tail section off of the aircraft, but the rest of it was not salvageable. And so you just leave it there. The purpose usually is, you know, to see if you can salvage as much of the aircraft as you possibly can. Sometimes it's possible. Sometimes they crash in the jungle and there was no recovery. You just blow it up.
You would blow it up?
Not us personally. We had explosive ordnance disposal people who would go out with us, especially if it was
not usable.
To make it not usable for anybody. Yeah, when those guys did their job, you couldn't find a piece big enough to put in a paper bag.
Wow.
Yes.
But it was up to you to do the reconnaissance.
Right, to see, you know, what could be salvaged and maybe what not could be salvaged, and if that was the problem, that's what they would do. Make it useless for anybody.
Did you ever encounter enemy patrols on your travels?
No. Our base, when I was there for the year, our base got hit 3 times. We had, the first time was probably the most serious. We had mortar fire, and we had an incursion into the base itself. We lost 3 helicopters were destroyed, and 4 were damaged. Not very seriously, but the possibility was there every day, every night. We were told, don't know whether this is a fact or not, but we were told there were 9,000 North Vietnamese regulars in those beautiful mountains that were around the base. And they shelled all night, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days that I was there. The Army had heavy artillery, and they would shell those mountains.
The din must have been
And they would call in, and
amazing.
sometimes twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, they would call in airstrikes. They would drop 500-pound bombs. They would drop rockets. They would drop napalm. It was a regular occurrence. As they said, we had the city during the day, and they had the city at night.
You mentioned napalm and Agent Orange. Is that anything that you want to talk about at all?
Not really. I will say this, as far as the Agent Orange problem is we're still suffering from it. We're still suffering from it. We have people every day that come in and have problems. Our cancer rate is 52% higher than what the national average is.
Vietnam veterans.
And their average is 5 years younger to get this disease than the average public person in the civilians. It's not very good. Not very good. It was used indiscriminately, and nobody ever told us, you know, what the extending results could be, and there are many, many.
Were there any other positive experiences that you had? People that made a difference to your life that you remember that you know?
Oh, there is. I mean, you know, when you get, 30 or 40 guys together in kind of a confined area, let's face it, you're all in the same situation. You're all there to do a job. That's what you're there for, and you share different stories, you know, people that you have at home, children, wife, parents. That was good. That was good, because everybody, you know, kind of supported everybody else. Nobody was thrilled to be there for a year, away from their families, but that was your job.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Sheila and I wrote, I would say, out of 365 days, probably 355 days out of the year. And, you know, just correspondence like that. At one time I had gone, I was there 10 months, and I just had to get away, and I went to Malaysia for an R&R for 5 days. And that was the first time I had actually called and talked to her in that amount of days.
You were able to make a phone call when you were in Malaysia?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
They had processes which they had a lot of these, ham radios, people back here in the States would hook up over there and transmit phone calls back and forth to people at home. It was kind of a little bit confusing, but if you wanted to talk with somebody, that's what you did. So it was very nice, and we had a group of people from Ashland, veterans who served from that town. They had a group of people who used to send boxes of goodies and stuff every month, which was good, because then you felt, at least somebody thought you were worth doing something for.
Mail call.
Yeah, mail call. That was very important, very important. And it was good. It took, probably, 3 or 4 or 5 days before you got mail from someone, usually. So sometimes you're a little behind, but it was good.
Okay. Well, is there anything else about your experience in Vietnam that you want to talk about before we move to what it was like to come home?
Well, there were some, I would say, sad situations, maybe not necessarily directly related to Vietnam. We had a few people that I was stationed with over there had some tragedies in their life when they got home. One of the sergeants that were in the picture that you showed in that group picture, he got killed on a motorcycle 30 days after he got home from Vietnam. And he rode a motorcycle every day over there.
In Vietnam, and he was fine.
Yeah, everything was fine. And my good friend, he had adopted a child before he came over there, and was engaged to be married. He didn't get married because he went there. And it was just about a month and a half after we got home, his adopted son and future wife got killed in an auto accident. So, maybe not necessarily so much related to that, but people that you knew, things happen.
And you stayed connected.
Yes, yeah.
Well, how about if you tell me what it was like when you returned stateside from Vietnam?
Well, hey, let's face it was good to be home. I don't think that the military got too good of a home welcoming, other than from their family and those people who
And what year was it when
I
you
returned in 1967, October of 1967. And it wasn't good, for knowing that what people thought about the troops that were there, and it was a bad war. People just weren't happy with what was going on there. Of course, you had the draft at the time, and people, taking off and going to Canada, or just hiding out. I don't think it was very pleasant. Other than being home with your family, that was good.
Did you have anything personally that you experienced, or it was more the atmosphere?
Well, yeah, we got stationed. They had requested that when you were in Vietnam, if you would take a consecutive overseas assignment. So that way that, you might have gone home for 30 days and had leave, but I wrote to Sheila and asked her if, I enjoyed the military as far as that goes. I liked the job, and I think it was fair. It was a good job, and I made rank fairly easily there. And so I wrote home to her and said that, if we took a consecutive overseas assignment, that, we could go almost anywhere we wanted. That's what they told us. And so she said, well, as long as we could be together, she said that would be fine. So
Meaning you would be reassigned?
Be reassigned,
else?
yes,
Okay.
stateside. The I would say policy was that you would not get a consecutive, either combat zone or isolated tour for 5 years if, you were there at the combat zone. So I said, fine, that's good. I would re-enlist. I had about 10 months to go when I got home in October. So I did put in for that. And when our orders come down, they said, Bill, you better go up and check and see where you're going. I figured, oh, gee, this must be good, right? They wouldn't tell me. And so I went up there and I look at the list and my orders came down. And I'm going to Biloxi. I said, Biloxi, what? Mississippi. So that's where I ended up, in Biloxi, Mississippi, at Air Training Command.
But you could be with your family.
Oh yes, oh yes. We moved down to Mississippi, and I was going to stay in. They had offered me a very lucrative enlistment bonus. My career field was critical, and they had offered me a substantial amount of money back in 1968. And so we really considered staying, re-enlisting. And my next door neighbor worked in personnel, and he says, I'll guarantee you 90 days after you sign up, you're gone back again.
To Vietnam.
To Vietnam.
Wow.
And or you go to Thailand, which from Thailand they would ship you there, what they call TDY, temporary duty assignment. And couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. It's more important to be home.
And so what rank did you reach?
I was an E5 staff sergeant when I was discharged from the service.
So you got out and went back to being a mechanic?
Yes, I went, and a friend of ours had waited for me for 4 years to get out and come back to work with him at a dealership. There was a new dealership up in Westboro on Route 9.
Back here in Massachusetts?
Back here in Mass, yes, yes. We came home. And so I went back there, and I worked in the automotive field for quite a few years after that. And then I went into, after the automobile field was kind of getting a little bit tough. And so I left there.
Were you making them or were you repairing them?
Well, I was a service manager at the time. I had gone up from mechanic to service advisor and then service manager. And I managed a Lincoln Mercury dealership in Dedham. And from there, I left there and didn't know what I was going to do. And I was offered a job at the Bellingham school system. And I went there and I worked there for 15 years and eventually became the director of maintenance for the Bellingham school system. I worked there for 15 years. I worked, volunteered for 10 years at the Bellingham Fire and Rescue Squad. And I left there. We went to Maine. Our youngest daughter had moved up there with our only grandchild at the time. And we followed them up there, and we lived up in Maine for 12 years. I worked for the Department of Fish and Game up there. Sheila worked at the school district up there, and I was a selectman up there for 5 years. Sheila was the town clerk there for 9 years. So we, really got along well with the people up there and really had a good time. We joined many organizations up there. One was the Lions Club. I was a member. Sheila was a member. And we enjoyed the time very much. Made a lot of good friends up there. We still have a camp on the lake that we go to every year that we own. It's up by the Canadian border. So we're headed there next week.
What brought you back to Bellingham?
Well, at the time, our oldest daughter had twin girls, and they were born prematurely a little bit, and they were kind of not doing so well, and we wanted to be near them, and my daughter. And Sheila's mother had gone on in age, and she had lived down in Florida. She had a house here in Bellingham. Matter of fact, we lived next door to each other at one time. And she wasn't doing very well, so we had to have her come back here with us. And she lived with us for 3 years, and then she went into a nursing home. But she, was having her medical problems, so that brought us back to Bellingham. So we've been in Bellingham now, back in Bellingham for 13 years.
So you've been giving back for a long time.
Well, yes.
Well, then tell me about your work with the disabled veterans.
Well, again, it's an organization. It's a volunteer organization, as would be like the VFW or the American Legion. Our DAV motto is fulfilling our promises to the men and women who served. That's what our purpose is. I am the commander of our local Lawrence J. Herron Chapter 6 in Milford. I am also a line officer for the Department of Massachusetts. I work as the VAVS representative for the DAV at the West Roxbury VA Hospital.
We're getting into alphabet soup
Yeah,
here.
we are. Okay, it's a voluntary service that the VA has people come in to volunteer their services at the hospital, which is many different services, and I help them get people, volunteers to come in and do different projects so that the veterans have something that they could look forward to. And I also am the hospital service coordinator down at the Brockton Hospital. I set up transportation for those veterans who can't get transportation, either being medically unable, and some of them are it's just age, they're seniors and they can't drive anymore. So the DAV provides free transportation for them to and from hospital visits.
That free transportation, I believe, a lot of times is you.
Sometimes. I do have 6 drivers that drive for me. I usually coordinate the pickups and deliveries.
But you do some of the driving too.
But I do some of the driving on occasion when we get busy, and God knows we do get busy. If I could, I would like to put in a good word for the DAV, because I feel it's a fantastic organization. And if I could, nationally in 2012, we filed claims for over 300,000 veterans to get claims for their disability and to get medical attention. We provided over 2 million hours of essential services. That's throughout the country. Transportation network, which provides transportation often to vets in every state. 9,000 volunteer drivers logged more than 27 million miles. This is in 2012. Logged more than 27 million miles, transporting nearly 800,000 veterans to and from their medical appointments. From 1987 to 2012, we have donated 2,586 vans at a cost to the DAV of nearly $57 million. Locally at the West Roxbury Hospital, our volunteers donated 5,394 hours last year. Total donated hours in the Boston medical system were 94,000 hours.
Wow.
Brockton DAV volunteer drivers drove 28,555 miles and transported 464 veterans. This year, 2013, the DAV will donate 110 vans to VA medical centers throughout the country. Our VA and Boston Medical Care is going to receive 6 of those vans, which were purchased by the DAV, Massachusetts Department.
So people don't have to use their own cars.
So yes, it's designed strictly for those people who can't get transportation to and from the hospitals to get their appointments done.
Right.
Anytime anybody would like to care to volunteer to donate some time, we're always open. We could use the help.
Okay. Great. Is there anything else that you would like to share about your military experience, about anything about being in the military? Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, again, it's a job. It's just like everybody else. You as a interviewer and the gentleman doing a camera out there, or somebody working in a bank or an office. It's a job. Sometimes that job is not pleasant, but that's what it is. And I think if you talk to most veterans, they don't feel as though the time that they gave was wasted time, or that they weren't, doing something productive in doing what they do. Sometimes there are things that happen that are not good, and people may not agree with them, but it's their job. And like I say, I enjoyed my experience in the military, other than the year I spent away. But no, I think it's a good deal. It's unfortunate, though, that, you know, we have just a voluntary service at this time here, when you've got veterans who have done 2, 3, 4, and 5 tours of duty. Sad, sad, sad. I know what they go through, and I know it's not pleasant. And especially for them as the person who is serving, but yet in their families too. I mean, they serve just as much as the veteran does. It's got to be tough on them, it really does. But
Okay. Well, thank you so much for participating in this interview, for sharing your experience and your pictures and from your heart. We want to thank ABMI for their support of this project, and we will be sending copies of these interviews to the Library of Congress to be part of the permanent record there. And any veterans who have ties to Bellingham or Mendon is encouraged to contact us to arrange to be interviewed here at ABMI Cable 8. So please call the studio at 508-966-3234 or email me, Marjorie Turner Hollman, marjorie@marjorieturner.com, and we will post the phone number for the station and my email at the end of the program credits, because each person's story is unique. We'd love to hear it. Thank you.
thank you.